Wessel Crane reached the coast road at dawn on his 11th day of running and stood on the packed earth of it, the first human-made thing he had touched in 200 miles, and had to fight down the urge to kneel and put his hands on it like a believer. A road, a real road, graded and ditched, with cart ruts and the prints of shod horses, running north and south along the margin of the living world. Somewhere down this road were patrols and towns and walls that held. Somewhere down this road, the war he was carrying news of had not started yet, because the news had not arrived. 11 days ago, Crane had watched thousands of the dead building something vast in the deep interior, the dead, which the whole coast believed mindless, working like an army under a hand, and the work nearly finished. He was a monitor of the Still Watch, the order that watched the dead lands, and his two companions had died getting him out with the warning. He had crossed the interior and the mountains on a wound and no food, hunted the entire way by a column sent to make sure the warning died with him. And the column was close now. That was the wrong-way miracle of the last 2 days. He had outrun them down out of the high country, stretched the gap, nearly lost them, and then the coastal lowlands had betrayed him. Open farmland country, low hedges, long sightlines, country built for wagons, not for hiding. Yesterday evening he had seen their outriders on a ridgeline behind him, close enough to count. 18 living, the tools of the dead moving with them. They had seen him too. The race had come down to its last mile, and the last mile was the one where his advantages ran out. The road gave him one gift before the hunters closed, and he spent it in the only way that mattered. 2 miles north he found a way station, a small one, a water trough and a lean-to and a bell post, and more importantly a rider, a courier girl of maybe 16, southbound, watering a tough little coastal pony. She took one look at Crane coming up the road and her hand went to her knife, and he could not blame her. He knew what he looked like. He had seen himself in a stream 2 days ago, a gray scarecrow, wound-fevered, 11 days from anywhere, wearing the ruin of a Still Watch uniform. "Still Watch," he croaked, and held up the one thing he had guarded better than his own life, the monitor's token from around his neck, the gray iron disc every coastal child was taught to trust. "Monitor Wessel Crane, interior post. I need you to ride, right now, faster than you have ever ridden, and I need you to not ask me questions we don't have time for." The girl looked at the token, and at him, and made the kind of decision the coast survived on. Where? North, any watch post, any watch officer, but if the founder is on this coast, it goes to her and no one else. Lovenia, tell them, and he had thought about this for 200 miles, the message, how to make 10 words carry everything. Tell them, Crane from the Eastern Post, alive, carrying confirmation. The rumor is real and nearly finished. I'm hunted by 30. I'll hold at the old river mill on the Tarn crossing. Tell them to come fast, because I can't hold it long. The mill on the Tarn, come fast. The girl was already swinging up. Watch business gets remembered, monitor. Stay alive to thank me. Working on it, Crane said, and the pony went north like a thrown stone, and he stood in the dust it left, feeling the strangest thing he had felt in 11 days. The word was out of his head. For 11 days he had been the only vessel, the entire warning, everything Edda and Petrol had died for, riding in one failing body. Now it was on a fast horse going north, and even if the hunters ran him down in the next hour, some version of the truth would reach the watch. Not all of it. The girl carried a sentence. Crane carried everything, the location, the scale, the defenses, the timeline, 11 days of hunted observation, the things that would let the coast actually act instead of merely fear. His death would still cost the coast most of the truth. But not all of it, never all of it again. He had made the warning bigger than his own body at last, and the relief of it nearly took his legs. Then he turned off the road and went east, toward the river, toward the old mill, to choose the ground he would live or die on. The mill on the Tarn crossing was a ruin, and it was the best ruin a hunted man could ask for, and Crane spent the afternoon turning it into a fortress that one dying man could hold. He had picked it from the watch's maps in his head 2 days ago, the way he now picked everything, fast, final, no second guessing. The Tarn ran deep and cold under the old mill race, crossable only at the ford the mill overlooked. The building itself was stone, 2 floors, its roof half fallen but its walls sound, with clean sightlines over the ford and the road's approach. Anyone coming for him had to cross open ground, then cold water, then more open ground, and every step of it was watched by the windows of the mill. He worked until dark, cataloging his advantages the way Etta had taught him. The stairs to the second floor were narrow, one body wide. He pulled rotten planking to make the first floor footing treacherous for anything heavy and dead-footed. He filled every container he could find with water and set them by the upper windows, because he had a fever now, a real one, and thirst would kill his judgment before the hunters killed his body. He had his long knife, a fishing spear he found in the race, and a monitor's sling with a pouch of good river stones. A child's weapon, the recruits always laughed at it, until they learned what 9 years of practice did to a fist-sized stone at 30 feet. Then he ate the last of the food the descending country had given him, sat by the west window where he could watch the ford and the darkening road, and did the last accounting. The girl had a day's ride to the nearest watch post, maybe less if the founder's people were already moving south, and they might be. He had seen sign on the coast road that he had not let himself hope about, 2 sets of tracks, days old, moving fast and south, one large and one small, watch-shod boots. Someone was already on this road, already coming, before his message ever flew. Against that, the hunters were hours behind him, not days. They would find the mill by morning at the latest. The arithmetic was what it always was at the end. He needed to hold a ruin, alone, wounded, fevered, against 18 men and a dozen of the directed dead for something between one day and forever. "One day," Crane said to the dark mill, to Etta, to Petrol, "you bought me 200 miles. I can buy one day." They came at first light, and they came the way professionals come, no shouting, no display, just shapes moving on the far bank in the gray, reading his position. Crane watched them from the shadow of the upper window and counted. The column had spread to encircle the mill's side of the river before closing. He could feel the dead ones working around the flanks, and he let them, because the flanks were the deep, cold river and the mill race, and the dead did not swim well, and the race would channel them into the one door he had prepared. The living men gathered at the ford. And one figure sat a horse behind them, dark-armored, still, directing with small motions of one hand, the officer, the commander who had chased him across a continent. Even at this distance, Crane could feel the man's attention on the mill like a weight. The first probe came across the ford at full light. 4 of the directed dead, sent to find out what the mill would do. Crane showed them. He let the first one reach the near bank and started on it with the sling, a river stone, 30 feet, 9 years of practice, and the dead thing's skull cracked sideways, and it went down in the shallows and did not get up. The second took a stone to the knee that dropped it into the deep channel, where the tarn took it downstream like driftwood. The third and fourth came on, and he met them at the door he had chosen, with the fishing spear braced, and let the treacherous floor do half the work. The first dead thing crashed through the pulled planking, and he put the spear through its eye while it thrashed, and the last one he took on the narrow stair, one body wide, where its strength meant nothing and his knife meant everything. Then it was quiet, and 4 of the officers' tools were spent, and the mill had told the far bank exactly what it was: expensive. Across the river, the officer studied the mill for a long moment. Then he dismounted, unhurried, and made camp, fires, pickets, a besieger's arrangements, and Crane understood the man had read the situation perfectly. The mill was too costly to storm carelessly and too small to need to. The quarry was treed, wounded, starving. The officer had 18 men, a dozen tools, and time. Except he did not have time. He just did not know it yet. There was a message on a fast pony and tracks going south on the coast road, and every hour the officer spent besieging the mill was an hour the coast spent coming. Crane settled by the window, spear across his knees, fever humming in him like a struck wire, and prepared to sell hours at the highest price of his life. They tried him twice more before midnight, and he made them pay twice more, and in between he fought the enemy the officer could not see, which was his own failing body. The second probe came at dusk, smarter, dead sent through the mill race under the wheel, where the water noise covered them. But Crane had prepared the race and slept in snatches with his back to its one exit, and the grinding of the old wheel gears he had jammed with a pry bar woke him the instant the first dead thing forced them. He killed 2 in the wheel pit, in the dark, in water to his waist, and the cold of it drove the fever back for 1 clear hour that he used to eat, drink, rebind his ribs, and move his defenses, because the officer now knew the race was defended and would not try it again. Everything the enemy learned cost them bodies. Everything it cost Crane was time and blood, and he was running low on both accounts. The third probe was men, 3 of them before moonrise, quiet across the ford, and Crane, watching them come, felt something he had not expected: reluctance. They were just men. Paid men, tired men, men who had walked the same 200 brutal miles he had. Then he thought of the waypoint villages this column had passed through. He had seen the smoke of one from the high country behind him on their line of march, and had understood what it meant. And the reluctance went where all his spare feelings had gone, into the current under the ice, and he did the work. A stone from the dark took the first man at the water's edge. The second and third made the mill wall, made the door, and learned about the floor and the stair the way the dead had, except the men could feel fear. And when the second man died on the stair, the third broke and ran back across the ford, and Crane let him go, because a fleeing man tells a story to a besieging camp, and the story was, "The mill kills." After that, the far bank went quiet. The fires burned. The officer waited for daylight, for hunger, for the fever he could surely see in how the mill's defender moved. Time was the officer's weapon now. Crane sat by the west window with the spear on his knees and the coast at his back and watched the road going north, where somewhere in the dark a pony was running, and help was either coming or it was not. "One day," he said again to the dark. His voice had gone to a whisper sometime in the night. It did not matter. The word was out of his head, riding north. The truth was bigger than his body now. All his body had left to do was the one thing it had done since the ridge: hold and hold and hold 1 more hour, and then the hour after that. On the far bank, the officers' fires burned patiently. 18 men and 8 remaining tools between Wessel Crane and the dawn. And somewhere south of the mill, closing through the dark at the pace that breaks people, 2 sets of watch-shod boots were coming up the river country. But Crane did not know that, and the officer did not know that. And the last mile of the longest run in the watch's history burned slowly down toward morning with everything, still undecided.